So I got a really good viewer question that I want to answer today. And I'm just going to jump right in. This is from Morpheus Morph 13. And it says, I'm still in a dilemma now whether to go with the FX30 or S5 Mark II Panasonic. Currently using the G85 and it's a beast when I shoot wedding videos, especially when I shoot solo, run and gun because the IBIS helps me a lot switching from gimbal to handheld. The Panasonic stabilization is a must for me. However, I kind of prefer Sony colors and a variety of their third-party lenses, but just can't with Sony's amateur stabilization. I don't want to use the Catalyst browse software for 100 clips. I have never used Vlog on the Panasonic because the G85 doesn't have it. Not sure if it is similar to Sony or S-Log, so I can use a variety of LUTs. So let's just talk about the stabilization. So he was watching one of my videos where I was showing sample footage from a wedding. And it was I just chose the handheld footage that I captured with the FX30. I'll put links down below if you're interested in seeing the video. So you can get an idea of what the handheld footage looks like coming out of the FX30. Now, I used to own a G85, which I think is a very good camera. The image stabilization in that to me is better than the FX30, but it isn't miles above, in my opinion. From what I saw from the S5 Mark II, it's very similar to the G85 in terms of what it can do. So it's also going to be better than the FX30. But in watching that video, I mean, you have to be the judge. Did it look like the FX30 was bad? Because in my opinion, it's not. It's definitely usable. And I have never used Catalyst Browse in my life. So there's that too. So when I do need a little extra stabilization, I'm just using DaVinci Resolve stabilization tools, or if I'm using Premiere, I'm just using the Warp Stabilizer, and I find that to be sufficient. As far as the S-Log goes, yeah, the S-Log, you can definitely just slap LUTs on it. The thing with S-Log and the FX30 is the low light performance in the camera, to me, is good. A lot of people say it's bad, but you got to be careful when you use an S-Log in low light situations. It's not going to look very good if you're not careful. So you really got to get these settings with the log right on the FX30. If you don't, you're going to be in trouble. I have a feeling that the Vlog in the S5 II is going to be a little easier to work with, being that it's a full frame sensor, more dynamic range. All that stuff plays into it, and it makes it a little easier to grade. Now, you also mentioned the lens options, and I think that's really one of the biggest things when it comes to Sony. There are so many Sony lens options. And here's one that a lot of people don't think of, and I mentioned it in a couple of other videos. The 18-105 zoom. When you're doing run and gun, this lens is amazing because it's not just 18-105 f4. It zooms with power. It's a power zoom. It's electronic. You don't have to go in there and twist the barrel and shake up your shot. You just use a zoom toggle on the top of the camera, or you use a little zoom toggle on the side of the lens. So it gives you those two options on either side of the camera, and it just works out really, really well. I even used this for my kids' soccer a few months ago, and I usually don't bring this camera. I bring like one of my consumer camcorders, but I was like, let me just play with it. This thing was so amazing for sports. If you're using that 18-105 and the zoom, it's an amazing combo. So that right there is just something Panasonic doesn't have. And we're not even talking about all the other lens options. Like right now I'm shooting this with the Sigma 30mm. I have the whole triad. I have the 16, the 30, the 56. Very inexpensive lenses, very sharp, great quality. Panasonic has some good primes too, but they're going to cost a little bit more. And when you're getting into the zoom lenses, I have the 17-70 Tamron f2.8 also. You're not going to find something like that on Panasonic, not for the price that you get it for the Sony. That lens is not very expensive, but it's really good. Great low light lens, good image stabilization, sharp image, To get something comparable on Panasonic, you're gonna pay probably almost triple. So, you know, you got to factor in the pricing as well. Now, this is not a video to disparage Panasonic, because I still think that's an incredible camera. And I'm still like, see how you're on the fence? Every week I'm still on the fence about switching over because it's really nice for some other things. One problem with the Sony FX30 is the battery life is terrible. So you're gonna get better battery life with the Panasonic. But here are two things that might seal the deal for you. Actually three, in deciding which one to go with. Keep in mind that the FX30 is not a camera. It's not a stills camera. It can take a still, one still at a time, and it only has an electronic shutter. So if you do hybrid shooting, where sometimes your clients require you to take pictures, the FX30 is not a good camera for that. But the S5 Mark II is. So there's that thing to consider. Here's another one. The HD footage out of an FX30 is terrible. It's absolutely terrible and almost unusable. So it's not unusable, but it's not good. Okay? So you have to keep that in mind as well. If your workflow right now with your G85 is to not always shoot 4K, but every now and then you're shooting HD, well, if you get the Sony FX30, you're probably going to be locked into 4K. Now, they do offer a variety of 4K shooting modes, so you're almost okay, but I would prefer just to have the option to still shoot HD when I want to, and I feel like the Sony does not allow me to do that. Here's the last point. You're coming from the G85, so you obviously know the Panasonic menus, you're used to them, you probably like them. If you're moving over to the Panasonic S5 Mark II, no learning curve. You can just jump right into that camera and you're all set. You know where everything is, you know how to set up your favorite menus, whatever. You know how to do everything. You jump into the Sony, it's a totally different menu system. You're almost gonna have to relearn the camera over. But I will say this about the FX30. It is now using the newer style Sony menu system, and it is very good. I don't know, so I'm gonna kick it back to you guys. Anybody that has experience with both cameras, the FX30 and the S5 Mark II, let's try to help our friend out right here. Which one do you prefer for shooting events? Do you find that the image stabilization is indeed really much better than what is in the FX30? I'm just curious to find that out myself. Anything I talk about in these videos, any of the equipment is always going to be down below in the links, so you can check out the current pricing for the S5 Mark II or the FX30, and some of the lenses that I mentioned. I'll put those down below as well, so you can check those out too. I will also put links to the handheld videos so you can see that. And I also have a video talking about how I overcome the problem with the battery life in the Sony using a very, very inexpensive, cheap solution. So I will put that in the links down below as well. As always, I'm Mike Turner. Thanks for watching, and I guess I'll see you soon.